Hey everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of Ask Shane Anything. This show happens because some of you guys and girls are pledging at $7 or more per month at patreon.com/SIFTD. Now I gotta say, this is the first time we've not had enough questions to do a full episode. So you guys need to go right now to sifted.net. Up in the header, there's a link that can take you to our forums where you can ask me questions. Remember, you can ask me about anything. It doesn't have to be about games. It doesn't have to be about sports. It doesn't have to be about music. You can literally ask me about anything. In fact, I kind of enjoy answering some of the more off-the-cuff questions. So anyway, head to sifted.net, hit that link in the header, ask me some questions. Let's go. First up, we have a question from Derek D111. I know it's a little different because it's a celebration of PlayStation, but Astro Bot is one of the best 3D platformers ever, and its sales are somewhere between 1.5 and 2 million units. Can it be considered a commercial flop? If it was published by Square Enix, Ubisoft, or EA, would there be massive layoffs? Can a AAA platformer be successful anymore minus Nintendo's 3D Mario games? Derek, that's a great question. A really, really good question. Astro Bot was my game of the year, and just as a full qualifier here, it's probably the worst selling game of the year that I've ever selected. Control was also my game of the year, and I think it sold better than Astro Bot. Here's the thing though, I do think Astro Bot is going to have some legs. I think it will continue to sell for quite a while. I also think one thing PlayStation is really good at is it does continue to market and sell its older games. So I have faith that eventually Astro Bot will probably get to around 5 or 6 million, something like that. It may take years for that to happen, but I do think it'll get there. But I think the most important thing here is expectation. Not just with PlayStation and this Astro Bot video game, but publishers in general. A lot of times I think they oversell what their games are going to sell. I think Square Enix is a perfect example. I think that's why you brought them up, because they've sold 10 million copies of games and still said that they didn't sell very well. So I think it depends on the perspective. Now let's talk about the perspective of Astro Bot in particular, because that's what you asked about. I don't think PlayStation ever thought, it never thought Astro Bot was going to win Game of the Year. It may have known it was really good, but I don't think it would have ever thought it would win Game of the Year, one. Number two, as far as sales are concerned, look, PlayStation knows how much platformers sell. It's tried to release platformers in the past. 20 years ago, they sold a lot better than they do now, to be fair. But I think PlayStation realistically knew that it wasn't going to be a 15 million seller like The Last of Us Part 2 or some of Naughty Dog's games or even some of Insomniac's games. I don't think that was the expectation. However, I do think that once the reviews started rolling in, which were a lot of them were perfect 10s and 9s, and then all the accolades started rolling in, I do think at that point maybe PlayStation's expectations went shoo right into the stratosphere. And honestly, I don't think it ended up hitting those heights. So I think probably what happened is the game has hit PlayStation's initial projections while the game was in development and after it was finished, after playtesting and all that kind of stuff. I think it probably expected to sell 1 or 2 million units in the first 6 months or something like that. But I do think those expectations probably changed pretty drastically when the reviews started coming in and people like us were talking about it on podcasts saying, oh my gosh, it's like mind-blowingly awesome. I think PlayStation probably at that point was like, okay, we need to rejigger our expectations for the sales of this game. And ultimately, I do wonder if the game hadn't really received the praise that it did, what it would have sold. I mean, imagine if it weren't Game of the Year, what would have happened with sales? I mean, it probably would have been less than 1 million. So to get back to the other parts of your question, what's up with the 3D platformer genre? Does it sell? Does it not sell? It does not sell. And that is why you see so few of them anymore. That is why we don't have a new Banjo-Kazooie game, and instead the developers are making ukulele and stuff like that on a much smaller budget. I love 3D platformers, and it's not necessarily about the platforming, although I do enjoy that. What I really like about them is that they have a license to do whatever they want. If you play a 3D platformer, chances are you're going to do some first-person shooting, you're going to do some racing, you're going to do a lot of platforming, you're probably going to do some like action-adventure combat along the way. There's no genre that has an open book as far as what they're allowed to put in the games. And that's why I love 3D platformers. That's why I've always loved them. The problem there is that when you have a game that has a bunch of different stuff in it, if it's not in the hands of a really good developer, some of those things could suck. Some of the racing games could suck. Some of the other smaller mini games and things like that could not be very good. So there is a danger there of you spreading yourself too thin, trying to do too many things and not having the expertise to do it. But the bottom line is that people have just kind of turned their backs on the 3D platformer. I mean, I'll put it to you this way. It's one of my favorite genres, and it is one of the last genres I would create if I had my own development studio and I was making video games. So, yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there. I think Nintendo can get away with it with its 3D Mario games, and that's pretty much it. I mean, look at what it took for Astro Bot to hit 1.5 million units, roughly. All the award. It has won all the awards. And it won't convince you people to go buy it. I don't understand why. I don't know. Maybe the YouTubers and the streamers didn't latch onto it because it wasn't funny for their streams. I mean, let's be honest. A lot of sales are driven by stupid, vapid crap like that. So my thought is everything's going to be okay. There's going to be another Astro Bot probably. They'll make a sequel. And that's really all that matters in my opinion. I don't really care how well it sells as long as I get another one. So I think that is going to happen, and I think eventually the game will probably get to around 5 or 6 million units sold. But yeah, you're right. Like, the 3D platforming genre is pretty much dead unless you're Nintendo. All right, next up, and our last question, like I said, we didn't get enough questions, is from the Sandman. Hey Shane, regarding industry contacts, are relationships fickle, or have you managed to maintain or grow them as SIFTD has matured? Is there a specific industry contact you wish you had during the Game Trailers days and now? What advice would you give for someone entering the industry wanting to start or build their contact portfolio? Okay, Sandman, I don't know if that's you and you're thinking about entering the industry, but if so, good luck. And if you need any hints or whatever, just send me a DM. I'm at Shane. I'm more than willing to answer any questions that you have, but you asked very specific questions for Ask Shane Anything right here. So the first thing I would say is, like pretty much everything in life, it's a mix. So as far as like needing Game Trailers, I didn't need any contacts. In fact, there were too many. If you have an audience, they will find you. You don't have to do anything. They will start hitting up other PR people to get your contact information to start working with you. So at GameSpot, at XPlay, at Tech TV and G4, at MTV and Game, all those places, I had no problems with contacts, no problems with content. The problem, honestly, was like too much. Like my inbox at Game Trailers every day would just be literally, I get to work, I'd have like 400 emails from all the people trying to get us to cover their games. And to be fair, that still happens to me now at SIFTD. A lot of those people don't support us, but they want us to support them still. So when I said things are mixed, they're mixed in a way that I still have great relationships with everybody. But it's mixed in the way that, like, some of them support us and some of them don't. And I get it. I mean, a lot of it is maybe out of sight, out of mind. But there is a lot of what have you done for me lately in the games industry as far as giving early product and reviews out to outlets and things like that. There are plenty of PR people that remember what I did for them, that I got their games on Spike TV, and I got their games on MTV, and I got their games on G4, and I got their games on GameTrailers.com. And I made these people a lot of money. And believe me, there are a lot of them that remember that. And tell me that they remember that. A lot of people have told me, like, working with you got me promoted at my job way back when. A lot of people remember the things that I did for them, and they work with us. Like, we don't have a gigantic audience, but we get a lot of review code. Like, other outlets with the reach that we have probably wouldn't get any. So, to be fair, there are a lot of really awesome people in the games industry, a lot of awesome PR people who absolutely appreciate what I did. A lot of people also appreciate a lot of the parties that we had at Game Trailers. Like, you know, we had 2 parties at the Playboy Mansion, and I hate to say it, but, like, I got to invite, like, 300 people to the Playboy Mansion, and a lot of people remember that more than any of the other stuff I did. Which really sucks. But at the same time, it still pays off. Like, I'll still, like, reach out to people for review code, and they'll be like, hey, remember that Playboy Mansion party or whatever? Like, all that stuff matters. And so, on the flip side of that, though, I left, sent out my email saying, hey, I've left, I'm going to start my own thing, it may take a while, and a lot of people are just like, oh, sorry, you don't have that big audience anymore. We're not going to work with you and give you product. In fact, I had the head of PR tell me that at Michael Pachter's party at E3. She was at the party for Michael Pachter, who works with us, drinking up the free expensive scotch that he was providing, and said to my face, we're not going to work with you because you're not big enough. And I was just like, all the irony. You can't even see it because you're too drunk. So there are, it's a mixed bag. Like, and I'll say this, I appreciate the people who have continued to work with me and Sifted more than I'm angry at the people who won't. Some of them simply just have standards. They're like, hey, if you don't have X number of unique whatevers every month, then we just don't work with you. And I think that's a smart way to do it. It's really a person-by-person thing. And one thing I'll say is if you're looking to build your contacts, you got to go places and meet people. Go to PAX. That's a great place to meet people. Also, the vibe there is a little different. They're there to meet the community. That's a great way. Make sure you have business cards, because if you hand somebody a business card, they're always going to hand theirs back to you. That's a great way to build contacts. And then I would just say that, like, the best way to build real contacts is to do things with people outside of the job. Go out and get dinner with them. Go out and get drinks with them. Do that kind of stuff. Once you have become drunk with somebody, your relationship is completely different. It's stupid, it's shallow, it's lame, call it whatever you want, but that's just a fact of the matter. You go out and get drunk with somebody, you're going to have a bond for like a really, really long time. It's very interesting how that works. All that stuff adds up. And then I think ultimately in the end, you have to be good. They have to be able to trust you. They have to know that when they give you code, you're not going to break the embargo. You have to build that trust. And that builds up over time. It's not going to happen overnight. If they give you one piece of code and you do your thing and put it up on embargo, that's not good enough to get code for the rest of your life. Like, you have to show consistency so that they trust you over time. And I think that's a big part of it too, is that regardless of the PR people supports us or not, they all trust me. Because they have given me some of their most cherished assets across their careers, and they didn't get leaked, and they didn't get disseminated out on YouTube and blah, blah, blah. The news didn't break. That stuff matters too. So there's a lot that goes into it. And a lot of it's just your personality and who you are as a person. Like, I think the biggest problems I've had with PR people is when they weren't doing their jobs. So going to like an event, and sometimes like the PR person would get drunk, and they would actually abandon their job as a PR person. There are some people in the industry, at least 10 years ago, that would go out to their own events and drink too much. And then they would lose control of the event. And if you're someone who's working there and you're like, hey, I have a job to do, I need to get my job done, and they're slurring their speech and they're like, I don't know, just blah, blah, blah. That's where I usually butted heads with PR people. I was like, wait a minute, you need to be doing your job here. I have a job to do, and you're keeping me from doing my job. But otherwise, like, most of the people in the games industry are awesome. Even the people who were drinking at their events were awesome. They just had poor judgment at certain events and things like that. So anyway, I guess that's what I would say. Those are all the different ways you can build your contacts. That's how my contacts are working. I'll just say this. I appreciate all the PR people who are working with us and giving us code. You guys should too, because it's good for you guys as well. It's making sure that we're able to cover games in a timely manner for you guys. So overall, I've been in the industry for 30 years. People trust me, and I think that's why they work with us when maybe they wouldn't work with an outlet that has the metrics that we have. Okay, that's it for this week's edition of Ask Shane Anything. Can't answer questions if we don't have questions. So again, go to sifted.net, click that link in the header, go ask me some questions. I love doing this show, but I can't do it without questions. So go over there and ask me some. I do want to thank everybody who's pledging anything at patreon.com/sifted. If you're giving me $1, I don't care. Anything matters. If you can find it in the kindness of your heart to head over there and help us, it would be awesome. We need the help over there. So again, go to patreon.com, give us a pledge. $4 a month gets you all our content mega early. $7 or more per month, make sure that this show keeps happening. And I do love doing it, and I love that you guys support it. We'll see you next week.